All right, now that we've taken a bigger picture look at the Hunter Biden investigation, let's narrow the focus a bit and delve into his dealings with a shady Ukrainian energy firm. Because for a story that on the whole is still pretty murky, this part of the story is actually pretty clear. Back in 2014, Hunter Biden took a paid position on the board of Burisma Holdings, a large natural gas producer in Ukraine. The company said they were bringing in Biden to help with, quote, transparency, corporate governance, and responsibility, which seems pretty ironic in hindsight. Even the president's most loyal backers would probably concede that bringing in Hunter Biden to help with responsibility is akin to seeking Will Smith's advice on how to take a joke. He had never done any work involving either the energy industry or Ukraine. What expertise he did have was in areas like lobbying and hedge fund management, so it paled in comparison to existing Burisma board members. And yet, Hunter Biden was being paid as much as $1 million a year for a job that was far from a full-time gig. A little less than $1 million. But the obvious question here is why? What was Burisma paying Hunter Biden so much money for? Well, Biden critics have a theory. Burisma's owner, Mykola Zalewski, was a highly controversial figure who had been investigated in the past for corruption and bribery in both the UK and Ukraine. The top prosecutor in Ukraine was a man named Viktor Shokin. And here's where Joe Biden comes in. In 2016, while still vice president, he was tasked with ensuring that Viktor Shokin was removed from his post because he was not doing enough to root out corruption and had been accused of dabbling in it himself. And how did Joe Biden go about doing that? He threatened to withhold $1 billion worth of aid to Ukraine unless Shokin was ousted. Now, that's not conjecture. Joe Biden has admitted all this in a colorful account he gave during a forum at the Council on Foreign Relations in 2018.
And I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired.
Now, before you go thinking you just saw the smoking gun, we should make it clear. It was not just the opinion of Vice President Joe Biden and President Barack Obama that Viktor Shokin should lose his job. The European Union was unanimous in wanting to see Shokin gone, and many others around the world wanted him out too. Even Republican senators like Ron Johnson and Rob Portman actually signed a letter calling for Shokin to get the boot. And that's because Shokin was universally seen as a bad actor, someone who was too soft on corruption, that he was intentionally not pursuing these types of cases. But as Hunter Biden's Burisma ties came into the spotlight ahead of the 2020 election, there was more scrutiny placed on the move by Joe Biden. People were asking, were the vice president's intentions really pure? Was he really trying to clean up the Ukrainian government, or did he have an ulterior motive in helping oust Viktor Shokin? And it's here where we turn to the infamous laptop and an email sent to Hunter Biden dated April 17, 2015, by a Burisma executive named Vadim Pozarsky. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's really an honor and pleasure. That email suggests Hunter Biden brokered a meeting between his father and a Burisma executive, and that email has now been verified by the Washington Post. The Joe Biden camp has repeatedly denied that a meeting ever took place, and this is the inherent problem with conflicts of interest, because the president's son had this position for which he was woefully underqualified, with a company with lots of skeletons in the closet, based in a country where his father had an active foreign policy role. Hunter Biden was basically handing an engraved invitation to his father's critics to want to know more. Now, Hunter Biden clearly got the job because his name was Biden and not Smith. The evidence that Burisma wanted the Biden name and association is very strong. The evidence that Joe Biden acted to oust Shokin to somehow help his son, however, is not. Back with us, former federal prosecutors Shan Wu and Kim Whaley. All right, so Kim, on this issue of Burisma, what aspect of this do you think that the federal prosecutors may be looking at?
You know, that's really hard to say, Dan, because we need to recall that, of course, 2 Republican-led Senate committees looked into the question of whether Joe Biden withheld that aid in order to cover up for his son, and concluded the answer was no. So my guess is that this is not a huge subject of the ongoing federal criminal probe, which apparently started in 2018, and Hunter Biden didn't find out about it until after that. But I think it would go back to what was mentioned earlier by Shan, that is the FARA, this idea that if you're going to engage in diplomacy with foreign entities, lobbying, you have to let the Justice Department know about it. That's really the issue. People, of course, lobby all the time. There's all kinds of nepotism that happens in Washington. And there's, you know, an idea of a perception of corruption. You mentioned a conflict of interest. But the line between that and a federal crime is you know, a really hard one to leap over. And I understand, you know, viewers, Americans want corruption out of government, but unfortunately, the story that's unfolded with Hunter Biden is not unique, of course, to Hunter Biden. There are many other people, I think, that engage in the kinds of activities that regular Americans would find problematic, but don't rise to the level of a crime.
So let me ask you, Shan, about that email. Anything to be concerned about legally now that that email has been confirmed?
Well, I think Kim's right. It's a question of what this appearance might be of a conflict versus what would be evidence of a crime. Assuming for a moment, there are only 2 paths, right, Dan, for that email. 1, there was a meeting, or 2, that meeting never happened. So if there was a meeting, that's still not a crime, although there could be a question of why it wasn't reported. That would be improper not to have reported that meeting, but still might not be any criminal culpability there. The other issue would be if it simply never happened, that it never actually amounted to a meeting, and that would be a wash as well. Yeah. So while I think it certainly points out your point, they're getting him for his name and position, that's why they'd have an email like that, I don't know that that event really is evidence of criminal culpability.
And we're going to dig in more later in the show on the Joe Biden piece on this. So Shan Wu and Kim Whaley, again, stick around, please. So many talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, but coming up, we take a different approach. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.